While waiting a few days for the new replacement keys from Syntaur to arrive, I continued to clean and inspect the WSA1. Three observations led me to conclude that, at some point prior to purchasing this synthesizer, some fluid had spilled onto and into the WSA1. First, there's an irremovable, speckled, spattered stain across the top of the synth. I've tried mild soap and a damp cloth, and spot-tested isopropyl alcohol. No luck. Next, on the inside of the keybed assembly and on the inside of the metal bottom plate is minor rust and what looks like calcium or sodium deposits. CLR solution does not remove it. Rust can be seen aligned with the spaces between the keys on the contact assembly board, which indicates to me that liquid poured between the keys. And finally, the LCD edges appear to have a pixelation that could be the result of fluids interfering with the backlight. Since it doesn't obstruct the info on screen, I'll leave it as it is. For now, the task at hand is popping the new keys into place and putting everything back together. Since the original keys are 25 years old, the plastic is slightly yellowed on the white keys. The new white and black keys both have a slightly different finish as well, a flat finish, that doesn't quite match the original keys. It's not ideal, but it's merely cosmetic, and considering functionality is the goal, I'm not worried about the looks of this synth. It lost its pristine condition long before I found it on eBay. Installing keys is a matter of aligning the receptor on the underside of the key with the spring that seats within it. Then pressing down on the spring allows the leverage notch on the end of the key to hook under the keybed backbone. Installing a black key requires the removal of both adjacent white keys by pressing downward on the spring side of the key and gliding the white key forward to clear the leverage notch from the keybed backbone. The metal rail has an adhesive-backed thin plastic strip that is failing to stay in place and gets caught in the leverage notch of the key. There is also a slight bend in the backbone that was likely the result of impact damage during previous transportation. The precision of the metal is slightly out of true even with my best efforts to correct it, but only a minor obstacle for removing and replacing some of these keys. The receptor on the underside of the black key is aligned and seated with the spring on the contact assembly board. I find it easier to push the spring toward the front of the keybed to get the receptor to receive the spring. Then pressing the key downward onto the spring allows the leverage notch to hook under the keybed backbone. If anyone knows the purpose of this plastic strip at the pivot point, let me know in the comments because it's annoying and it's getting in the way. Well, moving on. The white keys can be put back into place since the black key is now settled. It seems as though the plastic strip is losing its ability to stick to the metal of the backbone. That strip just keeps getting tangled when seating the leverage notch of the replacement keys. To me, it makes more sense to cut off unruly sections of the plastic that can't seem to stay in place. Now there's no obstructions to keep the keys from installing or pivoting properly. The remaining key replacements enlist the same method used up to now. But patience is a big advantage here to ensure that the old and new keys alike don't sustain damage to the somewhat fragile plastic notch. I'd rather be making music than fixing synth parts I haphazardly broke. Thoughtfully, Technics engineers left enough length on the wiring harness connecting the keybed to the main board to maneuver the keybed easily during repair. Bring the wiring over the bracket on the right side of the keybed to reduce strain on the wires. 8 screws lock down the keyboard unit to the chassis on the WSA1 as the first step to reassembly. I found the manufacturing run stamped on the underside of the floppy drive cabinet housing. This unit appears to have been made during November of 1995. And for anyone interested in replacing their WSA1 floppy, here is the model and serial number of the disk drive installed in my WSA1. Can't say for sure if it's the original drive shipped with the synth, but I do know it loads and saves data without a problem. Reattaching the grounding wire from the floppy drive to the metal rail on the back of the chassis is next, and then 5 screws lock the floppy housing in place. As we come in for a landing with this project, The wiring harness has to be tamed by strapping it down with 4 cleverly installed flexible tie-downs on the keybed assembly board. So much better than the disposable zip ties that are typically used. The bottom of the cabinet slides back into place and is secured with 19 screws. You can see the square access panel, which is a simpler, less time-consuming way to access the SY-ES1 port on the main board for installing the SY-EW1 dance expansion board, the only board I know of for the WSA1. In the end, this was a simple $70 30-minute repair. Sure, the custom display is flawed, possibly from liquid getting into the LCD, but it works. And some rust does exist on the internals, but poses no electronic issue. For less than half current market value, this gamble yielded a fair deal that allowed me to learn a lot about a rare, well-made 1990s synthesizer.